From Washington, D.C. to the heart of America, welcome to Mark Alford's America. I'm freshman Congressman Mark Alford, and I believe in America. I believe in you, and most importantly, I believe that our greatest days are ahead of us. You know, each week we take you behind the scenes to share the stories, the news, the legislation, and to meet the great people who are helping shape our nation. One of those lawmakers is a congressman from the 7th Congressional District of the great state of South Carolina, Mr. Russell Fry. Congressman Fry attended undergrad at the University of South Carolina and law school in Charleston. He helped Charleston School of Law achieve its American Bar Association accreditation, and he received the prestigious Civility Award. After law school, Russell practiced law in the Grand Strand for over a decade. He also represented the area in the State House for 7 years, and during his service there, he fought for lower taxes, less government, and pro-Second Amendment legislation. Congressman Fry is also our class president for our freshman class, the 118th Congress. He's a public servant, a friend, and not just I believe in America, I believe in Russell Fry. President, good to have you with us.
It's great to be here. That was an awesome introduction for sure. I don't know how my wife would think about that. She might have to humble me after an introduction like that.
How long have you been married?
8 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Where'd you meet your wife?
We met in Charleston, actually, when I was in law school. So it was down there. She was in law school, too. She doesn't practice. And we started dating. We did the long-distance thing for a little bit after I graduated, and she was still in school. And then got married, bought a house, had a dog, had a kid, ran for the state house, and now we're in Congress.
What do you think about you running for Congress?
She, it's interesting because she's naturally introverted.
Mm-hmm.
And so this kind of stuff where you're talking to people all the time, where you're out there, it's not her natural fit, but she supports it 100%. I mean, that was, if she didn't support it, I wouldn't have ever done it. But she said, you absolutely have to do this. And so
what made you want to run for Congress? I assume through law school, that's how you got into the state politics.
Yeah.
But Congress is a different step. It's a different beast, if you will. What made you want to make the jump into this race?
Well, I was in the state house, and I was comfortable there, and I was actually kind of in my stride. I was getting a lot of legislative work done, getting bills signed by the governor. I mean, it was actually really productive.
Unlike here.
Right. Very different. And then our congressman at the time voted to impeach President Trump. He was one of the 10 Republicans that voted with the Democrats to impeach President Trump. And I just vehemently disagreed with the vote and the rationale for it. It just made zero sense to me. And I looked up and I realized somebody is going to beat him. And do we want somebody that can get things done who has a record of doing that, or do we not? And, to me, it was kind of a defining moment to challenge an incumbent congressman. I mean, people just don't do that, or they don't do it successfully a lot of times. And I said, we've got to have somebody who fights the good fight, who's in the conservative movement, who believes it, who espouses it and has a record of doing it. We're jumping in, and if I go home and don't win, then I go home. And if I win, then we go to Washington. But to me, that was a consequential vote. It was a career-defining vote for that congressman, and one that I vehemently disagreed with, and the district, quite frankly, disagreed with too.
What is it I know you're friends with President Trump. What is it you like about him? Why do you think he should be president again?
Well, a lot of people promise things when they run for office, right? They make promises or vows to the American people. What is remarkable about his administration was that he delivered, and it was quite successful. You look at the Abraham Accords. Of course, you've got the Israel issue now. You've got the Abraham Accords. You've got the record low unemployment. You've got people carrying or bringing home more money for their families. The middle class thrived. Businesses thrived. I think he did a masterful job. And what I like about him too, and this often, you know him well as well, but this often doesn't get seen, but he's got a really good personal side where he wants to bring you along and encourage you, and he's very good with people, and that often, doesn't get telegraphed in the media. But he had a great administration for 4 years, and I think people want to return to that.
I wish that he could show that side of himself, or that could be portrayed however means that has to be done,
Right.
of the side that when you meet President Trump and he sits down and has chocolate cake with you at Mar-a-Lago, I mean, the kind of things that endear him to other people is his direct attention to you. Don't you find that to be the case?
I do. And, my wife, was very nervous to meet him for the first time. He did a rally for me in the district when I was running, and she was real nervous. And when you're meeting a president,
Right.
I mean, that doesn't happen every day. And within 5 seconds, he had her completely at ease. And I thought that was remarkable. They started talking about Phantom of the Opera and just different things. He has a real good a personality, if you will, to kind of calm people down. I mean, he also has the personality, like one-on-one. He also has the personality where obviously he's got a lot of angry lefties out there.
And he can rile up the media too.
Yes, he can.
That's one of the things when I was in the media, I took great umbrage at the way the media fought back against him. It's not the media's job to punch back and to call someone a liar. They never did that with any other president.
Correct.
They took the bait, and he ended up really, I think, causing the way the media operated, really. And they haven't recovered from it.
No, they haven't. In fact, I'll share a story with you real quick. There was a local press reporter. She's since passed away in the district. But when Trump was elected, I was in the State House, and we would periodically go to lunch. Now, she was a Walter Mondale liberal from the University of Michigan. She campaigned for the guy. I mean, she is not a Republican by any stretch of the means, but her stories were always very fair. And she made the comment, "We created him," meaning that the things that they were doing united the Republicans around him more than he had ever united the Republicans by himself. And it was because he was so viciously attacked from the beginning that it really, for us, for Republicans that were, that may have been, not me, but for other Republicans that may have been a little squeamish on him, it really united them around him. And I thought that was a very intuitive comment from a member of the media, and one who was a self-described Walter Mondale liberal, that they unified the Republicans around him more than we ever did ourselves.
And now the court system and the Department of Justice is doing the exact same thing.
Correct.
Where do you see this headed? He's got a lot of work to do. He's going to be in court. There were some who wanted him to run for Speaker of the House, put him up.
Right.
That didn't happen. Where do you see this next election going?
I think Republicans are in a good spot. I mean, I think people look where they were 4 years ago and they look at where they are today, and it is starkly different. And they want a return to that. They want a Republican who knows what he or she is doing in the White House. They want job growth again. They want energy production again. They want, a fair shake in our system of government. They don't want two tiers of justice. And they look at what's going on with him as a symptom of a larger problem, what's going on in the country, and that this administration is not focused on what really is impacting our citizens. So I think you obviously, none of the indictments, none of the court cases have hurt him. In fact, they've really solidified his base, grown it, and now on national polls, he's, on a lot of them, he's beating Biden head to head.
4% by this latest poll that came out this week. Biden is a weak president. He shows weakness on the world stage. We've seen that with our border. We've seen that with our economy. We saw it the way he pulled out of Afghanistan, even the way he reacted to Israel, coming in 3 or 4 days late to really make a statement to the American people.
Correct.
I don't see him winning this if he continues down this track. Do you?
No, I don't. And, Democrats are often united. They always, as many divisions as they might have, you don't see much of it, right? They don't go after Biden. I think you're starting to see cracks in that, and particularly with this Israel stuff that's going on right now. You're seeing cracks with it on the border. I mean, when you have a Democrat mayor and Democratic governors who are going after this administration and taking them to task for their failure at the southern border, that they're privately talking about this, but now that they're publicly doing it, there are big problems that he faces.
And the implications from his son, the Biden crime family, the $20 million plus that's flowed into their family through countries that are adversarial to us, does not help. You're on judiciary. We've got about a minute left in this segment. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are still doing. Of course, we're kind of stymied right now.
Correct. I think everything's stymied. Look, I think, the impeachment inquiry has launched. I think the committee is going to continue its work. There is, you have the great Professor Jonathan Turley, who is not a Republican, did not vote for Trump. And he unequivocally, he was one of our witnesses. Right. He said, there is enough evidence to start an inquiry, and the House has that obligation to do it. You've got the payments, you've got all the things that are surrounding the Biden family, and it just never has passed the smell test.
Hey, we're going to continue this conversation with our class president, Russell Fry, the 118th Congress, when we come back. You're listening to Mark Alford's America. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone, to Mark Alford's America, where we give you a behind-the-scenes look at Washington, D.C. each week. We'll let you meet some of the great people helping shape our nation. We're talking with our class president, Russell Fry from South Carolina. He's on the Judiciary Committee. We've been talking about the Biden crime family and the I think this is probably the most compromised president in the history of America. You agree?
100%. I mean, you look at the countries in which have funded these LLCs. You look at, and the clearest example is the Ukraine issue where he fired the prosecutor, right? That is probably the clearest, but you still have Romania, you have China, you have Russia, the money from the oligarch. I mean, you have a lot that's going out there. And every step of the way, what's really interesting to me when you follow this is, first of all, they said that the bank records would show nothing but Papa John's receipts in Starbucks. Well, that's not true. Then they said that President Biden never had any interaction with his son. Devin Archer testified otherwise. They said that the LLCs were legitimate businesses, but we don't have an explanation of what services they were rendering and what was expected. But you have, inexplicably, you have Hunter Biden on the board of Burisma, no energy background whatsoever. And Devin Archer testified to this. He said he was there to help protect Burisma because of his Washington connections. And I think that the more that we have seen and uncovered, the worse it gets. There's not a week that goes by up here that we uncover something else that is more favorable to the president. It's just gotten worse. And I really think that the House Oversight Committee is onto something here and has been for quite some time. Look, we've always said we're going to follow the facts. I ran against the Trump impeachment. I just talked about it. You don't impeach somebody just because you don't like their policies. Right. But here you've got some real problems. You really have some problems when U.S. policy could be dictated by who is paying your family. And I think that's kind of where the assumption is right now. We'll see what happens when we dig deep, but it just does not look good.
So this is not a tit for tat because they impeached Trump twice. We're going after Biden.
No, look, I think the founders impeachment is a tool that the founders that gave the legislative branch a check against the administration, any administration, the executive branch. And so it is a tool to hold people accountable. I've called for Mayorkas to be impeached. I think that's an easy one for his dereliction of duty on the southern border.
And lying to Congress.
The border, he says that the border was secure. It's not. Our role here is to determine whether or not impeachment is appropriate for the House on this president. And that's the purpose of the inquiry, is to continue to dig into this.
The left will say, the media will say, this is not warranted until we find something that directly links the president of the United States to these corrupt payments. What do you say to that?
Well, I say that's BS. The law does not agree with that either. You can still have, for instance, you can still have bribery even if you don't have, under the law, you can still have a bribery charge even if you don't receive the money yourself. A benefit to the family, meaning Hunter, could be a benefit to you under the law as it stands. If you look at the criminal law.
So when your son's paying you, what, $50,000 a month in rent?
Correct.
I mean, who pays their dad $50,000 or whatever the crazy number is?
Right.
That money is getting back, or was getting back, to the then vice president and now possible president of the United States. Right. So there's some sort of remuneration there somehow, some way, and I think that's what you guys are going to end up proving.
And it's so odd. So, Mark, if I hire you, we'll say I was practicing law again, and you hire me. You are hiring me to perform a service, which is to be your advocate, to be your lawyer.
Right.
You're going to pay me. You're going to pay the LLC or whatever that I have. Here, you have payments to foreign corporate entities, then payments to Biden family associates in the States, then payments from there to one of your 20 LLCs, and then payments out. It just doesn't look good, right? I mean, why would you not pay if Hunter was, performing a service or practicing law or, doing whatever? Why would you not just pay him directly? And the intent was to hide it. And if you look at the FD 1023, the confidential human source had this interaction with a Burisma executive, and the comment was made that this was intentionally designed to conceal, that it would take investigators, if they caught it, it would take them 10 years to figure out what happened. And that's kind of proven to be true. It's been about 10 years.
Of course, this investigation, the impeachment inquiry, the investigation by Ways and Means, judiciary oversight, it's all on hold right now because we don't have a Speaker of the House. We can't do our committee work.
Correct.
And as we sit here in our office right now, we are waiting on another vote that Jim Jordan's supposedly going to call tonight. We've been over 2 weeks now without a Speaker of the House. How frustrated are you?
Incredibly. People didn't, I did not get sent to Congress to watch internal disputes. I mean, I feel like I'm watching a Jerry Springer episode live in our nation's capital. And it's unfortunate. And I think the American people are frustrated. I think they want us to get to work. To me, it doesn't matter who occupies the chair, right? What matters is that we are working and that we are constantly doing stuff. Because of the rules package, this is a very member-led group right now that members can propose amendments. They can convince people. You have regular order.
Which is the way it should be.
Correct. And now you have these personality grievances. And I think the holdouts now, the holdouts in January against McCarthy,
right,
was 20 people for 15 rounds. And now it's a different nominee and a different set of holdouts. And the frustrating thing for me is we have to be united. I have always backed our nominee, backed McCarthy. I backed Jim Jordan. He lost, and Scalise was going to come to the floor. So I would have voted for him proudly. And I backed Jim Jordan. And I think that the holding up this process in this place because you are mad and you want some sort of catharsis for what happened to McCarthy, I think that is wrong. I think that's damaging to the conference. I think that's damaging to the institution, and it's damaging to the country.
There's so much at stake right now. We have 8 appropriations bills that have not been passed. We have a continuing resolution hanging overhead. We have an unsecured border. We have aid that we need to get to Israel. Time is not our friend here.
No, it's not. And people want us to govern. I think we've got the best ideas. That's why I'm a conservative. I think we win the arguments all the time when we start breaking these things down on how we can govern. But I think people need to get over what happened a couple of weeks ago, and we need to go elect a speaker and get back to work.
I agree with you. When you heard the news a couple of weeks ago that Israel had been invaded, that babies had been decapitated and people burned alive, what were your initial thoughts?
Just horror of what was going on. I'll share a story with you. There's a gentleman, he's a supporter of mine. He's a younger Jewish guy. And he called me, and it was really interesting. He lives here in the States, but he's involved, and he wants to be involved in this stuff. And he said, I've never felt more isolated and alone in my entire life. Just seeing not only the attacks, but then seeing the protests, like this was all Israel's fault and they had it coming. That, I think, just of course, it took me back, but it really affected him just as a young Jewish American.
I think it's bringing it to a head, though. I think this has been underlying in our society, and the truth for some people, their truth, if you want to call it that, their beliefs are coming out, and it's scary.
Yeah.
The lies and deception, this moral equivalency between Islamic terrorists, Hamas, and Israel.
Correct.
How can anyone compare the two?
It defies all logic to me, and I just truly do not understand it. But liberalism defies all logic to me anyway. Socialism defies logic. It's never worked, but people still think it could work here. So, look, I think the truth comes out. I think most people get it. The silent majority understand it. They support our ally Israel and their fight against, and despite a very vocal minority, we're going to keep supporting our greatest ally.
Amen. Russell, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it. Hey, folks, thanks for joining us for Mark Alford's America. We'll talk again next week. Until then, remember that I believe in you. I believe that our best days are still ahead of us. Russell, I believe in you, our class president. Good to be your friend, and look forward to working with you for however long God and the voters want us here, right?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Hey, until next week, take care, and remember, I believe in America.